Layouts with Tailwind are very easy to handle with. And the first thing we gotta learn about layouts is container. You may have seen me using container a lot in the previous lesson, but we never really focused on it. So let's go. So on the official documentation, we can see that first, we can use a class that is called container, all right? And we see that there are breakpoints. And through those breakpoints, we are adding properties to our container that change its current size, all right? So right now, I don't get any container, I just got a parental div. And what I'm going to do, I'm just going to create a container, and inside I'm going to put an h1, which will be actually hello. Yeah, there we go. Once it's done, what we can do is to add a background red 500 because we want to see where our container is and what size does it take. So when I get back to my app and I update, there we go. We see that we have this red rectangle, which is actually the proportions of our container. So if I open my inspector and I pass my mouse on it, we see that the size is 768. And the thing is that right now I'm zoomed. So if I zoom out, there we go, and I pass my mouse, it's 1536. And if I go there to find my proportion, my property, we see that 536, it's the value of the 2XL size, all right? And we see that here on the sizes, it's decreasing. So we pass to 1280 pixels, 124, 768, 640 pixels, etc., etc. And we see that those breakpoints are related to the basic breakpoints of Tailwind, all right? So if I zoom out and I go there, and what I'm going to do is looking at the size of this element, I'm going to just lower the size of my screen, all right? So I'm going to do this quickly, little by little, and we will see that suddenly my red rectangle is losing its width, okay? And what's happening there, it's really easy to understand. It's that with the media queries, we are switching actually sizes, okay? And actually right now we are on 668 pixel down there. Exactly what was written there on the medium size exactly here, okay? So container is helping us to deal actually with the size of actually our element when we want to put content. However, the thing is that right now, it's not centered. And we would like to be centered. And if we go to the documentation, we see that we can center with MX Auto. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to add MX Auto, and suddenly it's going to be on the center. There we go. And if I lower the size again, it's going to work again. And we suddenly understand that this container let space on the size, okay? On the side, sorry. Here you see on the side, I got space. And if I lower it again and again, I need to reach, I think, 640 pixels, there we go, to don't have any padding anymore or margin. And the thing is that with containers, it's adapting itself automatically to the size of the desktop. And this is what we want to do. However, you will see that often when you will use container, you will be obliged to add MX Auto. If you don't want to do this, we can go directly inside our tailwind.config.js. So first I'm going to remove it. Okay, I'm going to remove this MX Auto. There we go. And we see that here on container center true, I can automatically center my container. Okay, so now I'm going to go on tailwind.config.js. And here on my theme, what I can do is put container center true. So it's supposed to center my container automatically. And we see now that it is working. A last thing with container is that, as you see here, I'm going to have content that will stick, actually, that will stick to my border. And I often don't want to do that. The best thing to do for me is to always add some padding, a little bit of padding, okay? And there we go. We see that we got space that is put inside the container. It's always better because on the mobile after, you will have some space that you don't want. So it's just a tips that I give you now. Always deal and always remember with the padding inside the container if you don't want your content to be appearing to the border actually. With Tailwind layouts, we can deal with columns. For instance, we want to create several columns with different elements. We can simply use the class columns -1, 2, 3, 4, 5 until 12. Or we can deal also with sizes of the column. So there are already sizes that are done. And this is the result. So let's say that here I'm going to have a first paragraph with one lorem ipsum. Then I will have another one, actually, there we go. And then I will have another one again. Okay, so I got these 3 paragraphs. And when I get back, there we go, I'm there. So I'm going to remove this BG red 500, that is useless for now. There we go. And if I use, for instance, column 3, because I got 3 elements, let's try it in there. Column 3, I'm going to save, I'm going to update. There we go. Suddenly, my content is on 3 columns. But what happens if I put a 4th column, all right, and I save? Well, actually, and we don't see it, we don't see where it is. Actually, it doesn't change anything because all your content is going to be fulfilled on 3 different columns, okay? So if I just copy this, okay, and I had it there, it's going to continue and all the content will be displayed on 3 columns, okay? Let's say that now I want to have 2 columns and suddenly I will have 2 columns. Let's say that I want to have 12 columns, it will be weird. There we go, we've got our content on 12 columns, okay? So this is how it works. However, if you want to have, for instance, a specific size, let's say that we want to have a small column of 5 columns LG. Let's take it. I'm going to get back there. I'm going to use columns LG. What's going to happen is that the size of the column that will be displayed will be automatically LG, so 500 or something. And what we like is that it's automatically responsive. So this is how you would use column. But let's try now with an image. So I'm going to copy this image there. And let's say that I'm going to add an image and it's going to be this one. And when I'm going to save, there we go. Suddenly see that the image is taking the whole size and the text is on the right, all right? Which is cool is that, and we get the example there, depending on the elements that you got and depending on the size, okay, it's going to adapt itself automatically. And that's something that we want when we are dealing with columns. Let's talk now about the display. We often use the display with Tailwindcss, okay? So we've got basically the basic display that we can have in CSS. So for block, we have display block. For inline block, we have inline block, etc., etc. And we also have flex. We already saw flex in this course. So previously, you can check at the flex listen. It's just putting display flex, inline flex, table, table caption, etc., etc. And if you want to also deal with the display on the table, table cell, etc., it's happening in there. And which is cool, which you would use often, I think, personally. You would need often to hide some element. So let's say that we have our image there, okay? So I'm going to type class name hidden. Suddenly, okay, my element has been hidden, okay? And if I want to block it again, there we go, it appears there. All right, so what you can use also is inline block. You would often use inline or inline block, okay? And there you get some example. Or you would have, for instance, block as an element that you could use, okay? The floats, we got very good example there. We can see that we can make float an image on the left, on the right, or float none to have it on the top. Let's get back to our example. I removed our column and we got this big image and it's just crazy for us, okay? Give a width to this image. So it's going to be width 64. I think it's going to be Yes, there we go. If I want to have my image to float on the left, okay, what I can simply type is float left. All right. So now it's going to stick to the text, and float right. There we go. We're gonna have the image on the right. Okay, good. And we have another one which is float none. And it happens often that you don't want to have this dirty text next to your image. So you will type float none, and actually it's exactly the same as if there is no float. Clear is here to control the wrapping of content around an element. So let's just copy paste this image there, and let's give it a new size. Let's say 32, sorry. So I'm going to update, and suddenly I get two images there, okay? So what I'm gonna do is that I'm going to put a float left, okay, to this image, and a float right to this one, all right? What's gonna happen now is that we got the image, okay, on the left and on the right. And if I put a clear left to my text, so let's first try here, class name, there we go, clear left, and I'm saving. What's happening is that my text is going to be set on the size of the image on the left, all right? But if I put clear right and I update, it's going to be set under the image of the right side, okay? So here we understand that we are setting the text line, or the content line actually, to the image on the right or on the left. And if I use clear both, okay, what's going to happen is that it's going to be set on the line of the highest element, all right? You've got several other options, clear none, of course, and clear none, it's exactly like if you didn't do anything, okay? So I update, and there we go. Position is a real subject when you want to learn CSS. And with Tailwind, it's really easy to handle. All right, so we see that here we've got an absolute class, which gives us position absolute, and we got a relative, which gives us a position relative. All right, so let's say that at first we would have a parent. So inside our container, I'm going to create a parent with a relative position. It will be BG red 500. We're going to give a bit of rounded and a bit of sizing, and it's going to be pixel 8, and there we go. So what's gonna happen in there, I'm going to add some 8, and I'm going to add some weight, 8 and weight, there we go. And when I go back, I suddenly have this square red, all right? And let's say that inside I would have almost the same, okay? Let's say that I would have a div with a width maybe more little, yes, h24, and then dot bg green 500 rounded lg. I save and I get back, I got this green square inside the red one, okay? And what I can do, actually, we got some example. I can give actually the relative position to my parent, which will say that every element under will be relative to this one. And suddenly, if I put absolute as a class to my div here, and I get back and I update, nothing will change. However, what I can do now with this absolute position is to work on the top, right, left, or bottom, okay? And which is cool there is that I got plenty of classes that help me to deal actually with top, bottom, etc., etc. And exactly like padding and margin, I can work on the position that I want. So I want this green square to be on the top instead of bottom. What I can do now is next to absolute to put top 0. So if I save that and I get back, okay, and I update, suddenly my square is on the top 0. All right, and if I want to put on the left 0, I can also do it. So when I save, there we go, it's moving on the left. Because I said to him that its parent is this one, the relative one. And the children has an absolute property. and a top 0 and a left 0, which means that he has to relate to the top 0 and the left 0 of the relative. All right? So let's say that I want now that, for instance, I want now to be outside of the square. Okay? I want this green one to be outside. Can I do this? Let's say that I want to do minus top 2. What's going to happen there? I'm going to update. And we see that my square is going, we don't see it exactly, but we see that my square is not rounded there, which means that I'm outside of the red square. And let's say that I want to do the same. I can do minus for a negative value, left 2. Okay? So I have to remove this left 0 that I have there. All right. And when I update, there we go. We see that my element came out. So with the property top right, bottom left, and there are plenty of elements that you can do. So let's say that we can use this inset property. So we saw top, bottom, left. Okay, it's working easy. It's really easy to understand. Let's try this inset. So I'm going to remove my negative property. So I'm going to type inset 2. When I get back and I update, we see that it's like a padding. It automatically went on a special position because of inset. Let's look at the fixed property inside our application. So here we got a very good example. We got a parent that is relative, okay, with the fixed property as a children. And we see down there that we can actually scroll inside, okay, inside our box and contact stay fixed. It stay fixed on the bottom. So most of the time, this is the position that you will use if you want to have a sticky or a fixed element. Now let's talk about the overflow. We can deal with overflow with several classes. Auto, hidden, scroll when you want to scroll inside an element. And if you want to show or not an element, you can deal with that. So let's look at the example. There we've got an overflow visible and we've got an image inside a box that have a certain size. So this box there have a certain size, okay? And actually the image, as you see, is going out of the box. With overflow visible, the image is authorized to go out of the box. However, with overflow hidden, we want that the box will be the actual limit, okay? We want the box to be the limit of the content, and we don't want to have content that goes outside. So we will use overflow hidden to hide the content from outside. And we can go further, and what we can do is to say we want to have an overflow auto. So for the example now, I've created a lot of text, really, really big. And as you see, by nature, the browser allows you to be on overflow auto. So when you want to scroll into a div, what you need to put is this overflow auto. And if you are not able, just add the property. Okay, we've got another example which is cool here, is that sometimes you want to scroll from the left to the right. You can use overflow X auto to do it. And vertically, you can use also overflow Y auto to do it. For the visibility, it's almost the same as display none or not. However, the thing is that here, what's happening is that it's invisible. So let's just copy paste this example. So I'm going to go back there, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to remove all of this. I'm going to create a new container. There we go. And I'm going to add this. I'm going to add class name. There we go. And I want to add some color there. So I'm going to add a class name bgtil500, and I'm going to copy paste this one. And there we go. So we see that our second element has an invisible class, which is number 2. And when I get back and I update, there we go. So we got 1, we got 3. So finally, I'm going to get back to this H screen because I think it's better for our example. There we go. we see that 1 is visible, 2 is invisible, and 3 is visible. So let's look at the CSS. And the thing is that right now, invisible, okay, has a visibility hidden. So I'm going to move there and just, yeah, here, just down there, you see that it's visibility hidden. All right. So you can use visibility this way when you want to show or hide content. The difference with display hidden or not is that it's also appearing in your HTML, but now it's invisible or not. Finally, let's talk about the Z index. With Z index, you can put several elements on top of each other. So let's get back again on this example. So here I'm going to remove this, all right. And instead of the classes, here I'm going to put class name, there we go. And I'm going to add a BG red 500, there we go. We see here that we've got actually Z40, Z30, Z20, Z10, 0, okay? And what's going to happen is that they are going to be on the top of each other depending on their size. So here it's not really happening. What we should do is to say that we want to have a flex there. So it's supposed to be, there we go. And let's gonna add some sizes to these rounds because it's a bit tricky. Rounded LG, border, yes, there we go, border white, okay. And we're supposed to have something that looks a bit the same. Okay, no, it's not rounded LG, it's rounded full. There we go, rounded full. There we go. Object position. We use it to control the position on an element within its container. Okay, so here what we see is that we have an image, blah, 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 with a special size. So let's try to do exactly the same. So I got my image there, which is really big right now. And what I want to do, I want to reduce its size. So I'm going to add exactly what they did. So maybe it's a bit too much. I'm going to put 62. There we go. 62. No, 62 doesn't exist. Sorry. 64. There we go. 64. All right. So now what I'm going to do is that I got my square and I got this object non-property. So if I add this object non-property, let's see what's going to happen. Actually, here, there we go. We see that the image has been centered inside my square. And from this moment, what I can do is, and we pass the mouse here, we see that the position of our image. Actually, what we have, basically, it's object center here. Right now, we got object center inside the div. And when I just look at it, we see that I got my square. Let's say that now I want it to be on the top. What I can do is just using object top. So I'm going to get back there. I'm going to put object top. And when I update, suddenly it's moving. Okay, it's moving. We are on the top of our image. We don't see it clearly there, but let's say that I want to have an object left. I can deal with the position of the image inside my box. And that's something really useful sometimes when you want to deal with the position of your image. You can use all those classes. Let's say that now I want to have an object right bottom. I can deal with that. So I'm going to put object right bottom and I'm going to save, get back, update, and suddenly there we go, I finished there. Okay, so object position is really, really useful when you want to deal with the position of your image inside your element, inside your square. Finish on layout, there are several elements that I didn't present it to you because I think they are useful, but you can really understand yourself by reading the documentation. You got break after, that helps you to break after an element, break before to break before, break inside. You got also the box decoration break, okay? So here you see that you can create some decoration and you want this decoration to break or not. You got box sizing. To be honest, I don't use it that much. But you can deal with actually how the browser should calculate an element total size, all right? And what you have also, it's the overscroll behavior. We talked about it a bit with our overflow hidden, it's how you want to deal with the overscroll.